I wanted to review the Blast event, which was one of the reasons why I had to wait until the Blast event finished at fucking 12:30 at night. Fantastic. Love that. Remember how the CSPPA said you shouldn't be playing any games after midnight? Well, obviously, here we are at 1 o'clock in 1:30 their time. Games finishing. No one complaining about it. So don't worry. Fuck you. Fuck you, streamers. Fuck you, content creators. Definitely fuck you, players. No one's going to say anything to the big two at the moment, ESL and Blast. That's just how it goes. Special rules for special people. Esports in a nutshell. But let's just start by talking about Blast. Lots of talking points have come out of it. And before we get into the obvious one, I'm going to hammer into oblivion. Let's start with some positivity. And that is OG. OG for me have done what OG do across all of their esports titles. You know, you think about what they did with Dota, how they pulled people from like relative obscurity, went on to win some TIs, then they rebranded again, they pulled players, not rebranded, they re-recruited, they pulled in players from obscurity, and you know, they're being very competitive on the DPC right now. Something that we talked about, actually, go and find an episode of the Richard Lewis show where I talked to the CEO of OG and his recruitment profile and how they do things, because ultimately they recognize they're not a financial juggernaut. They know they're not going to compete with the biggest orgs in the space, and so they have to be clever and, you know, careful about how they recruit. And I really admire that. When a team pulls that off and you pull off that recruitment profile, that's something that's always worthy of praise. Now, OG, for me, have been able to replicate this in Counter-Strike. They've managed to come through the Blast. Obviously, they had some stellar results. I'm going to isolate one to use it to make the point, but they got off to a bad start in the best of ones. Now, let's start at the beginning. This format for Blast is shit. It is a shit format, and they don't even represent it accurately on the broadcast. They call it the Gauntlet as if it's actually hard to qualify. No, the Gauntlet are the fucking best of one, you know, online RMRs where you have to play like, you know, 10 times over 2 days or whatever it is, against teams you've never heard of, can't prepare for, typically on Mirage, a coin toss at the best of times, and, you know, big names get scalped. That's a gauntlet. That is what I would call a gauntlet. A gauntlet is something that's meant to be really fucking hard to do. The Blast is not a gauntlet. It's the opposite of a gauntlet. It's a fucking tea party. Like, you get so many chances to actually go on and qualify. The best of ones that they have, it's about seedings. You know, it's like you play the best of ones, you can get off to like a terrible start with the best of ones and still go on to win. And that's indeed what OG did. But I'll just say, overall, this Blast format, it's just a waste of everybody's time. Well, it's not. It's not a waste of Blast's time. It's about extending the content as far as it can go, occupying the calendar as much as it can go. They should just run a legitimate tournament, but they want to do it over 2 weeks, get more content, hit more of those deliverable hours for sponsors, so you end up with this. And that's really all it's about, guys. I hate to break it to you. It's not that they've come up with some, like, super cool format that really lets us know who's better. No, in actual fact, this is a really forgiving format for their partners. Otherwise, players and their orgs would protest against it. They would say, listen, we actually don't want to play that extra week. No, this is good for everybody. So anyway, Vitality and Astralis had OG at the start in best of ones, and OG lost both of those best of ones. And you were thinking, well, you know, if you lose to Astralis in this day and age, you're probably shit. But actually, when it got to the best of threes, you know, it seemed they just weren't in full gear, let's say. And when it got to the best of threes, yes, they were given a layup in the form of getting to play Complexity, still a very inexperienced team. But then they had some legit wins, and let's talk about it. When they got FaZe, I was thinking FaZe are going to beat them, and that's going to sort of be the end of the OG story. But FaZe were able to put in a really good performance over 3 maps. You know, I think beating FaZe on like Ancient, and particularly on Inferno, I feel that that's like quite an accomplishment in the current landscape. You know, let's be real. It's the weakest top 20, probably the top 20 has ever been since the early days of CSGO, since like 2012 to 2014, maybe. It is a piss. You know, Astralis are number 4 in the world right now. It's all fucked up. It doesn't mean anything. And some of the teams that are in the top 10 right now are absolute fucking frauds. So keep all of that in mind, but I still think FaZe are good value for number one in the world, and I think FaZe are a very good team. Rain, of course, said in an interview today, we're not the same team we were at the end of last year. I know FaZe are ranked number 2, but again, that's because of like Na'Vi leapfrogging them because of the way all the numbers are done. FaZe is still number 1 in my book. So I feel this is like a super legit win for OG, who are ranked 15th at this moment in time, and they certainly look better than that. I mean, I would pick this OG team over like Mouse Sports, for example, or Mouse as they're now rebranded as, and Mouse are like 5th in the world. You know, the rankings are all fucked up. But anyway, since they brought in, you know, Degster, they already had great pieces there, OG, for me. I like the Nexa pickup. I know Nexa's not like known for being like a tactical mastermind, a tactical powerhouse. He hasn't really impressed me tactically, but what he is, he's someone who is willing to make the calls. He's someone who's willing to make big decisions and mid-round calls. You see that a lot, you know, with teams where he's been the IGL. They'll just commit to something. They never seem to get caught out for time. They never seem to get caught between two sites. The comms are always very decisive. Sometimes making it the wrong decision is better than making no decision at all. And so, you know, I think Nex is like a baseline IGL. He's going to make calls. He's going to make decisions. He's going to keep you together in a mid-round. And he frags on top of everything else. And right now, I think fragging IGLs, as we're probably about to get into when we talk about Hooksy, you know, a fragging IGL is something a team needs in this day and age. I don't think there's any room, really, for an IGL that can't put up numbers. I think that's been true for a while. But Nexa does. He always gets his. I mean, in this FaZe performance, everyone was raving about Flames, right? Which, by the way, absolutely rave about Flames. He's a fantastic talent. He's been doing super well in this OG team right now. He's been putting up numbers. He's looking really, really good. You think about the development of Israeli counterstrike. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. You could have, like, a really good all-Israeli team probably in the next year or two, which, given that the Saudis have taken over Counter-Strike, you probably will never see them play in Riyadh, but whatever. But Flames was just fantastic, and Nexa got the same frags as him. So, you know, fantastic performance. And then, look, the special sauce in the OG lineup right now, the thing that makes it not just a dry dull burger to chew on, the thing that brings it to life, is Degster as the X factor. Degster was one of the best players that was entering free agency after he left Spirit, when he said he wasn't going to play there anymore. Obviously, it's like one of these things where you're not supposed to be buying Russian players or giving Russian people money, but it's okay if they relocate, and what are the rules now? And no one cares. No one cares that Cloud9 has essentially used all of the sanctions to just exploit the Russian region so they can get budget talent and build an academy side and a starting lineup for cheap. No one cares about that. No one cares about the whole nonsense of Liquid pretending Yakindar's just a stand-in because he's coming from Virtus Pro and they're trying to rebrand as well behind the scenes and pretend they're Armenian now or something. No one cares about any of this. I'm the only guy who's ever going to talk about this. Nobody listens to me anymore because everyone wants to just make some money before the scene dies. So, whatever. We're all just pretending none of that's real. But fine, listen, I never gave a fuck about any of that anyway and thought we were all just hand-wringing and being ridiculous right from the get-go. So, Degster coming into OG has been one of the steals. Like, you know, you're going to talk about signings in, you know, the best signings coming out of Rostermania. I don't even know if I talked about Degster all that much in OG because I'm trying to think when he officially joined. I think he might have officially missed, I think because he joined as a stand-in first and then it was official. I think he just missed the Rostermania window. I think it just happened before the break. So we never talked about him. But in terms of like signings in the, you know, going into the second half of the year, Dexter's right up there as one of the best. And again, putting up massive numbers. You know what his caliber is. He was instrumental in the team spirit run they had at the previous major. And then listen, this is where the OG scouting comes in. Neofrag and Fiku have also been good. I know it was a bit of a meme at the start. Like, they did have some, like, underwhelming, to be nice about it, performances, but they found their feet. They've got a really good system running. Nex is using all of the pieces correctly. And I just feel that OG right now are like a team that are going to climb up the rankings. They're going to be in the top 10 probably by the time we, you know, start rolling round to the RMRs maybe. Certainly there or thereabouts. I think their stocks are up. They're feeling pretty stonks for me right now if you're only communicating memes. So them getting, through here in the top, along with like Na'Vi, Liquid, and of course FaZe, who came through afterwards, all of those teams, I think it's actually good value. I'm super happy to see OG, because I know like I talked to the CEO when they failed to qualify for the major, when all of their life was like in Nico's hands essentially, and it really hurt the org. They got good people over there. They got a really good coach in Rugger, who, again, was kind of like really harshly banned by ESIC. He was one of the people that was probably super unfair. He served any bans, especially in light of the ones that got away with it. And I think they're a good team to watch. Degster's going to be a big star for them moving forward, with Flamesy as well. I think they got a lot of tools, and I think in this top 20, they will do damage. So super happy to see all this like click and come to fruition for them. If you're a fan of just exciting Counter-Strike and explosive Counter-Strike, OG are a good team to fucking follow right now, and you haven't been able to say that for ages. Let's talk about the downside. Let's do a negative. Let's do an Overwatch fart noise. I've got to talk about G2. I can't do it. I'm like getting anxiety. I was listening to Lawrence and Scrawny, who I love dearly, and I was listening to the analysis desk, and I was listening to Banks. Banks, I'm always listening to Banks, and I'm listening to it, and I'm just like, why are they praising G2? Like, what is happening? I am in fucking bizarro world right now, because remember, this is the most forgiving tournament format. G2 would have bombed out in any other fucking tournament format, and they basically have only got through to the finals, the fall finals, because they got to play Vitality back to back. Vitality themselves struggling. So I've got to talk about G2. I was massively underwhelmed by G2. I stand by my critique. This G2 lineup will absolutely not work, and anybody that thinks it's going to is huffing the fucking hopium to a degree that cannot be healthy for you. Let's be absolutely clear here. Here's how G2 qualified: by beating Big, who've just replaced players, and beating Vitality. That's it. It's absolutely ridiculous. People are talking about, like, this is going to be some great new, like, fucking, like, oh, you got to give it time. You got to give it time. There's some things, guys, that are just immediately apparent. Let's just start with Hooksy talk, because, like, it's a fucking meme right now, but I don't think people actually realize, like, how ridiculous it is. I don't use HLTV as the barometer of what the CS community thinks. Not because I don't think HLTV isn't actually really the beating heart of the CS community, because it is. I think that it's just, there's so many people just trolling and griefing. You can't trust anything on the HLTV forums, because it's like, it's such an old website. It's still got a little bit of that 4chan culture where people will post provocative things to get you to react. They call it bait, so you can never use the HLTV forums as like a barometer of what people are thinking. Reddit is where all the fucking pretend smart people go, isn't it? And they all go there and they're all smoking their little bubble pipes, like, right? And oh, yes, well, of course, if you look at it this way. And so you go to Reddit, and that lets you know really what all the faux intellectuals in the CS community are fucking thinking, right? And it's always garbage. It's almost always garbage, every consensus they arrive at. And so prior to, obviously, where we're at now, which is fucking memesville for Hooksy, deservedly so, they were actually saying, oh, Hooksy will shine in this thing. I saw this comment loads. Hooksy should shine in G2. Hooksy will shine in G2. Hooksy's going to prove everybody wrong at G2. Why? Why would anyone think this? Like, but just explain it to me. Like, what am I missing? This is Hooksy, right? People are looking at his stats since he joined G2, right? Like, but just forget that for a minute and just look back in Copenhagen Flames. Like, this is what happened when he played like tier 1 teams. So here he is, like, against FaZe. Here he is against Spirit. This is obviously the major. Mouse, 0.39, against Mouse, for fuck's sake. I think that's a 0.09, is that? Yeah, that's his famous 1 for 17 against Apex. 1 for 17 against the tier 2 team, guys. 0.09 professional rating. Why would this guy, who printed more red ink than the Republican Party, why the fuck... That's actually a really smart joke on 2 levels. right? Why would anyone think that this motherfucker is going to be a suddenly tier 1 caliber IGL? Why would anyone believe it for a second? It makes no fucking sense. Everybody was sort of like pulling for it to happen. This is the other part to it. Like, it's not just that he plays bad, but I know the CS community, right? And I have seen threads crucifying Carrigan. Carrigan's got to go. Carrigan is dog shit. They all said that. Right, back in the Nico era. They all said that in the post-Nico era. Carrigan's never going to win anything. Carrigan's too much of a liability. Carrigan needs to get on deathmatch. Carrigan doesn't frag enough. Carrigan's stats were infinitely better than this when people were making threads about him. And FaZe were always challenging for titles. I saw people do it to MSL. Right? Everyone was saying MSL was bad. MSL won an event where he was the MVP after picking up an AWP, a weapon he has historically not done, and he got cut by North after doing that. But everyone said MSL's terrible, MSL's terrible. You all crucified MSL. You did it with God B. Back when God B was you're never going to win anything with God B. Although he built a really competitive... You've done it with... And all of those IGLs I've just talked about have won tournaments, have glittering legacies, you know, going back many, many years, sometimes to other games. They're all just infinitely better people than Hooksy. And now, everyone these days is fucking absolutely raving about like, oh, but don't be mean to Hooksy. Don't be mean to him. Are you fucking serious, blood? This guy is getting paid big money. And he's done nothing to earn it. G2 fans should be outraged. Like, I'm telling you, right? Like, this is an outrageous pickup. I don't know who signed off on this. I do not know whose choice this was. I cannot believe it's the players. I don't know why it would be Xtaz's. I don't know why Carlos would choose this. It's ridiculous. Yeah, exactly. Daps, another one. Yo, shit on Daps. People were fine with cutting Nexa. He never had numbers this bad. So I just don't know what the fuck people were thinking. This guy is a tier 2 player. He managed a tier 2 team and, oh, but they got top 8 at the major. So did fucking Quantum Bellator Fire, for fuck's sake. You always get a freak aberration just based on the nature of international counterstrike and how the major format works. It's nonsense. Now we look at the G2 performances. So keep in mind, this is where they beat Vitality. This is the series today. And everyone, and again, Launders, love you, bro, but come on. At the end, Hooksy, much improved. Hooksy, and he said in the interview, all smiles and all laughter, going, yeah, I've been deathmatching non-stop since the last game. Bro, you can deathmatch until the end of time. You're dog shit. I'm sorry, like, it doesn't matter. I could probably have a really successful bet on this. I doubt you will ever have a higher than 1.00 rating on fucking HLTV for any game you play at any top tier tournament against tier 1 opposition. Deathmatch is not going to save you. Like, just let's be real about that. And listen, I'm all for IGLs not having to frag so much, but just hit a positive rating one time. Like, just do it one time. Do it to show me you can do it. Anyway, you got that. Let's also just say, you know my pet peeves. He's not handled the media angle well. I won't play the interview. It's only 2 minutes. The audio's not great. But by the way, when you have played, this was after the 0.24 performance, the 2 for 21, right? If you play that bad and there's a microphone in the room, avoid it. Like, this is just good advice from an old man that has been around the block loads. If there is a microphone in the room after you play that dog shit, avoid it. Do not go there. You have nothing worthwhile to say. You can only make yourself look like a cunt. And here he is. Most of the people talking trash about me don't know what they're talking about. Spoiler, you don't need to know anything about high-level Counter-Strike to know 2 for 21 is fucking bad, you cretin. Why would these words leave your mouth? He also said in this interview, if I got 10 more frags, would we have won? I don't think so. Now, this is one of the dumbest comments I've ever heard an in-game leader make, and it terrifies me, because one of the things that everybody has been saying about Hooksy is he's got a great mind for the game, a superior mind to Alexi B, right? All of that bullshit. But think about that comment for a moment. That is somebody who's looking at a scoreboard afterwards and going, well, if I made that 2 at 12, we'd still lose. Not all frags are equal, you mad cunt. Like, do I need to explain this? By the way, Victor was a golden over and knows nothing about the game. I know that not all kills are equal. I know that an entry frag, for example, is worth like more than just an eco frag, right? Isn't it? Or when you're hunting somebody and a round you've already won, there's impact to this shit. So like if he'd 1v5'd 2 rounds and got 10 kills and won those 2 rounds and those rounds broke the economy of his opponents, you probably win that game, homie. You know what I mean? Or if you got like 10 entry frags that opened up bomb sites and you got good afterplant positions afterwards and the CTs couldn't retake, those 10 frags might win you 10 rounds. If I had 10 more kills, I don't know, mate. Maybe let's see. I mean, like, you had a bunch of kills today and scraped through. So how's your theory holding up there? Absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. All of the G2 memes around him, I know they're trying to support their boy. Like, if he's got a future at this org, like, you're in trouble. Like, I'm just telling you. Like, it's not even personal, man. Might be a lovely dude. He's one of the few Danish players I've never actually met. Usually because he's never been on a fucking relevant team. So he might be a lovely guy. But you know me, I'm not talking about that. I don't give a fuck about your lovely guy personality. This is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous thing to say. This was from today, I think.
Come on, Hooksy. All yours. Oh.
Like, if I did that on a stream, I'd get rightly crucified for doing that. And I ain't played CS in about 6 years. That's ridiculous. That is a tier 1 IGL. Then there was another one I saw. I couldn't even, was it this one? Oh yeah, here it is, right? Like, just to show you, these aren't like, you know, aberrations. These aren't like freak occurrences.
4-man stack inside A. Hooksy's not bringing the kills, but if he's bringing the calls, it's just up to his teammates to deliver. Smoke fades in front of him. Dupree's honing in closer. Flash on the feet of Hooksy. Goes for the Monacy fight. Insta-dink. Sets up Hooksy. Oh, he can't get the kill. Zywoo glocks him in the face.
Zywoo glocks him in the face. And there's loads. There's just loads like that. So, look, that's Hooksy, right? I really stand by the MSL thing. I really do. Like, you could have had a much better... Like, I don't even know if MSL would be that bad as a player. Like, I find that hard to believe. But whatever, they're in now. They're in too deep. But I'll also just add, right, won't somebody think of the overpaid IGL? Won't somebody think about their feelings? It's like, it can't be real. The amount of hate for Hooksy is disgusting. It's fair game, guys. It's fair game. Speaking as someone who, when I was, like, active, I had a hate thread, like, fortnightly for me, I guess, right? No one ever said... This amount of hate Richard Lewis gets is bad. No, you all think I deserve it. You would all love it, in fact, if it pushed me to the point of suicide. That's the only excuse for dogpiling someone for almost 20 years of his life. But no one ever put a thread up saying, you know what, maybe Richard Lewis is a human with human emotions. No, you never said that. Duncan gets a hate thread every single solitary week without fucking fail. No one ever fucking says, yeah, maybe we should stop doing this. Now, Hooksy has had a weekend of it. A weekend of it. And it's about him playing bad. No one is saying he's a bad person. No one is saying he's a piece of shit. No one is lying about him being affiliated with the alt-right. They are simply saying he is dog shit, which is objectively true and always has been, and he should never have been picked up by a tier 1 organization. Not a serious one who wants to actually challenge for titles like G2 do. That is all fair and all valid, and he deserves absolutely zero sympathy. I don't care how nice he comes across in an interview. This is the crucible. This is what sports is. Fuck your feelings. I cannot say it enough. You have to perform. You have to go out there. This is the bed of flames on which you must walk barefoot. That is just the reality. That thread was in response to this thread, which I thought was great to see it happen so soon. The Arsenal TV fans are out. He's got to go, Wobby! He's got to go. Full league judges. Hooksy has to go. I honestly can't believe what I'm seeing. He has absolutely no ability to compete at tier 1. His aim is awful. Yeah, it's so Arsenal fan to me. I love this. His aim is awful. His game sense is awful. His decision making is awful. As a type this, he's 1 for 20. My heart goes out to the rest of G2. But one astute person noticed this, which was great. Good to see this. Hooksy is getting all the blame, but JKS isn't doing much better either. This was before today, obviously. This is before this series against Vitality, which, because they beat Vitality one time, we all have to think this team's good now for some reason. There's your God, by the way. There is your God. I recently put out, right, a video that wasn't even anything to do with JKS's performance, wasn't even negative towards JKS. It was simply saying JKS is the most overrated player on Reddit. What does that mean? That Reddit overrates him. What does overrated mean, Richard? Because I know from when Thorin said he thought Fallen was overrated, everybody thought overrated means bad. No, overrated means where you think they are in terms of skill, ability, qualities, is not accurate to where they actually are. And as I've said, there is only one player in World Counterstrike that's had more threads written about them, more admiration threads written about them than Simple, the literal greatest player of all time since Katowice, and that is JKS. That is overrated, guys. That is, you can't make an argument about it. I put a video out on YouTube, and man alive, it just went insane. Like, people were creating burner accounts on Twitter to abuse me. I woke up today. You should retire. I thought you retired. Didn't you retire? Listen, I'm a fan now. I'll talk about what the fuck I want on my fucking stream, and you can just lick my taint. That's life now, mate. What are you going to do? Write to a TO? Don't work events. What are you going to do? Get my podcast cancelled? Don't do it. What are you going to do? Get my Patreon shut down? Don't have one. That's that. So you're just going to have to fucking deal with it, I'm afraid. I'm a fan like you now. And if you can express your opinions as a fan, you know, even absurd ones like, I think JKS is best player of all time. If you want to do that, then listen, I'm coming back at you with the fucking fire. And actually, because I'm not deranged, I have facts on my side. This happened. Ton of JKS apologists immediately gravitated towards this. But I just want to show you, like, JKS, remember, was being touted as a player that if added to the G2 lineup or any lineup in the world, and he was top, and every lineup should get him, including the number one team in the world, they should drop Rain. FaZe should have dropped Rain permanently. Rain, MVP of the fucking major final, right, in a performance JKS could never do. You meant to drop him to pick up JKS. Right? So JKS was touted by Reddit to walk into every single team in the world, even though he'd been on the bench for a year after failing in complexity. That is the thought process of Reddit. That's why he's overrated. So remember that. People were going, Rich, but, you know, he should only be the third or fourth best player. That's all he needs to be. Jax was the third or fourth best player, you moron. There's meant to be an appreciable improvement in quality. And also, as we saw on G2's run here, Hunter can't always be like a godhead. He's going to have a bad game. Nico can't always be a godhead. He's going to have a bad game. Right? So you need a player capable, that third or fourth player, of stepping up and filling the void. If they can't, why are they there? That's how you challenge for titles. Think about FaZe. Think about their absolute luxurious strength in depth. Where it's like, you know, Rops can have a quiet game. Rain will step up. Twist can have a quiet game. Rops will step up. So anyway, let's look at your God. Again, this is your God, Reddit, not mine. Best player in the world, according to Reddit, walk into the best team in the world. Let's have a look at his stats since joining G2. He had 0.79 on his debut when they lost to Liquid. Can't help but feel if you put up a few more numbers there, that's a 16-12 game. That's on a knife edge. But whatever, it's a best of one. This game here, where he had a 0.68, by the way, in that game, Hooksy comprehensively outfragged him and had a decent rating, and no one was even saying Hooksy was bad on this day. That 16-14 loss to a Na'Vi team with Sumdai Young plus Head Trick as a stand-in, arguably Sumdai Young as a stand-in, so essentially two stand-ins on Na'Vi. They lost 16-14, all JKS's fault. 100% JKS's fault. Made a ton of anecdotal mistakes, failed to shoot players in the back. 100% JKS's fault. Not a single solitary thread about it, about how he played bad. Not one, because you can't bring yourselves to accept reality. Oh, congrats. Bigger here. Hey, guys, remember the team that's barely scraping to be tier 1 at all that just made roster changes? It's gamer time. Brilliant, fantastic. Nobody got a medal for beating Big. What the fuck are you talking about? Big about a 50% win rate for about 3 years. It's just random. It's just random. It's just Schrodinger's team. You just don't even know who the fuck they're going to be. Well done, though. You beat Big, right? Then you went up against Vitality. A 0.48 rating when you got absolutely battered 16-6. And that was the one where Hooksy performed even worse. And everyone was like, oh, no. Haha. Fuck Hooksy, but I feel so bad for JKS. This guy was being touted as like one of the top players. Walk into the tier 1 team. What's that then? Oh, but you must give him more time. Why? He didn't have more time when he went to FaZe, when you all pretended he won them the event single-handedly. Why? Why? If he can do it in FaZe, why can't he do it in G2 immediately? Why? Why do we have to give him time? Or could it be that maybe Carrigan is the best fucking IGL ever of all fucking time at using stand-ins? No, Richard, you're just a JKS hater. So to be clear, since joining, he's had a negative rating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times out of 10 maps. And he's popped off against Big and had 1 good map against Vitality. Or 2 good maps against Vitality. Wicked. People are going to say, oh, but he's not a star. How can you be a star in a team with Nico? He's meant to be a star player in his role. He's meant to be a clear upgrade from Jax. So far, I hate to break it to you, he's not been an upgrade from Jax. I believe theoretically he is. I always said he was. I've never had a problem with him. By the way, when he moved to Complexity, you can pull up the tape. I went back and said, that's a good roster move. But the difference is, when I saw he couldn't be fucking arsed there and posted some of the lowest numbers, particularly his last event, where he'd just given up, I was out on him after that. And then he spent a year on the bench turning down teams because he was too good to play for them. Nah, guys, I'm sorry. Like, I can't tolerate that. There are some legends in the game who have played with disgustingly low-skilled players just to get back on the horse. Why should JKS be immune? Why should he get to bleed an AUG dry for a year with his feet up, turning down AUGs who are actually in the top 15 teams in the world because he's good enough to play for them? And then he finally gets into G2 because Reddit memed it into being a fucking reality. Right? No tier 1 team should be picking up a player who's been on the bench for a fucking year unless it was simple on a year break. And even then, it would be fucking risky, by the way. But Reddit memed it into reality. Reddit pretended JKS was good. And so here we are. Well, this is what G2 was stuck with. Now, obviously, G2 have got through. I'm talking like they fucking lost. But man alive, it's only because of the format. If they think they're going to do anything in other tournaments like this, their win condition now is basically Munaseat, Nico, and Hunter all popping off all of the time in every game. That is the only way they can win. And trust me, those 3 players are so good. If they do that, they still will win maps. They still will win series. But that is ridiculous. So, no, I'm not vibing with G2 at all, even though they squeaked through. Fuck that. Now we can talk about Liquid. Because, remember, oh, this is the other point. What a segue. It's like I planned this and scripted it, but I haven't tonight. Remember, by the way, over JKS, they could have had Jakindar, right? They could have had Valda. Point being, Jakindar joined Liquid. They also brought in Daps as a new coach, and Liquid have looked really, really good since that move happened. They were here in these groups to get through. Spinks, that was the other one. Yeah, they could have had Spinks. So you could have had Spinks, you could have had Jakindar, you could have had Valde. You went for JKS because Reddit told you to. But anyway, let's check in with one of those moves. Remember, Jakindar, the roll overlap wasn't right. Roll overlap, okay? Roll overlap, yeah. Tell me there's any type of roll overlap happening in a Hooksy lineup like that. You know, you need to overlap his fucking lack of kills. That's what you have to do. But anyway, so Liquid started by beating G2, as we talked about. They had a bloodbath 16-14 against Complexity. They got banged out by Na'Vi in a best-of-1. 16-4, whatever. But when it came to the best-of-3 series, 2-0 over NIP, which in my opinion turns out to be a legit result, and 2-0 over Heroic. Heroic haven't looked the same since Refresh left, bizarrely, and Heroic made a ton of horror show mistakes in that series. Like, Cadian had a nightmare. And again, he had a nightmare, but still comprehensively outfragged Hooksy. Go figure. But Liquid looked really, really solid. And basically, it does come down to they've had a injection of new ideas, You can see Daps, they're playing very differently. They're playing more decisively. Nitro is not putting up numbers. Nitro's not on some hooksy shit, but he's not fragging. But at the end of the day, the calls are decisive. He had 1 or 2 notable clutches in the tournament. But with OC, Yakinda, Elige is back on form, seems to have got a bit more of his mojo back. He's not as, like, emotional. Liquid are looking really, really good coming into the second half of the year. And, you know, I made fun a bit of all the people that were saying about Yakinda joining Liquid. And they were going, Liquid are immediately a top 5 team in the world if Yakinda joins. You know, listen, it's more true with Yakinda than it is at JKS. But listen, he's done the business since he joined. Let's have a look at these numbers at this tournament. Like, I don't even know. I haven't even checked. He might be one of the best players overall. Get those numbers out of my sight. And let's look at this. Here we go. This is obviously since he joined Liquid going all the way back. This one is just for Blast. Now let me show you, by the way, about a rifler that deserves to be compared to fucking Jesus on Reddit. Yakinda does. Yakinda, he's fucking great. He's a great team player, right? He does all the interviews. He says all the right things. He's only a kid. He doesn't sit there playing like he's got a fucking face like a smacked arse. He's loving his counterstrike. And who could blame him? Right now, he's ripping motherfucking heads off. 26-18 against G2, 1.37. Bit of a, you know, quieter game in complexity, but he was playing entry frag and roll a bit more, 1.11. He had just below a 1, otherwise he would have had a perfect event in that sense with a 0.98. But then look, in the best of threes where he went nuclear. 27 for 22 against NIP, followed by a 33 for 22, 1.46 rating. Went thermonuclear in that. NIP couldn't deal with this motherfucker. Just so good. And then Liquid v Heroic, man alive. He was eating Heroic for breakfast. 20 and 12, 24 and 14, 1.65 rating. By the way, like, remember, yes, Cadian made a ton of mistakes, particularly on overpass. But, you know, he had a nightmare series. It was one to forget about. But Yakinda was unplayable. These were not low impact kills. These were not like, you know, he was getting the first kill. Like, I would love to see the percentage for that. Like, opening kills for that event. I bet it was ridiculous. This guy was legit playing so well. And, you know, remember, could have been a G2. Just putting that out there. But Liquid, man, yep, I believe now. I haven't been a believer in fucking Liquid for so long. But actually, you know what? I know it's like one event or whatever, but I'm all in. These were legit wins. These wins wouldn't have happened in the old days. This couldn't have happened when Shox was on the roster. This couldn't have happened with Adren as a coach. So they've actually made significant improvements. And I think now, you know, North America has a team you can believe in. Let's just quickly look, actually. Let's look at the overview. I just want to see how good Yakinda was. He must have been one of the top players at the event overall. Yes, second. So, to put it into context, yes, he played fewer maps, but that's because Liquid won. Munazi was above him with 1.34, but Yakinda had a 1.32 with a plus 40 kill differential over 7 maps, which was 4 fewer than Ziwu, who only had a plus 60 differential. He was above Nico, he was above Brokey, he's above Twists. Obviously, Simple just swooped in to play like, you know, hey guys, he's on some Michael Jordan shit right now, so who knows what would have happened if he played the full event, and what that would have done to, like, Bit's performance and, you know, all of that nonsense. But at the end of the day, just based on the games he fucking played, Yakinda had a blockbuster performance there. The segue was, you've got an NA team you can believe in. Good news. Let's just talk about Evil Geniuses. They continue to fucking disappoint me and fail on every level that it's possible to fucking fail on. EG took a map off NIP. And I think it was Hampus did an interview and he said EG was shouting at us that we were shit. I'm like, is this real life? Like, if you play for Evil Geniuses and you call any other team in World Counter-Strike shit, it's outrageous. And then it turns out the guy that was doing it is Hexed, a guy who literally just got to tier 1 for the first time in his career. And only because it took, for Hexed to ascend to being on a team like Evil Geniuses, it took the entire collapse of a region and monumental selfishness from Stewie 2K. Like, all the planets had to align. He's there playing at his first big tournament. Yo, shit! Like, Jonah Hill, homie. Jonah Hill. Like, just don't, like. Let's talk about Evil Geniuses and how they did at this event overall. I mean, I don't know. Was it an improvement? Yeah, probably. Like, but the only way is up. Like, you know what I mean? They had some just dour performances again from players. Like, I don't know what happened to Breezy. Like, I can't even explain it. They lost both of the best of ones. Like, against FaZe, it was a 16-8. Breezy sort of top fragged again. You were like, okay, cool, he's back. It's only a best of one. No bother. Breezy's back in the mix. But then he bottom fragged against Big. He got like 8 kills. And Cirque only got 6 as well. And you're like, I don't know, man. Maybe it's just time for them to give up. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't understand it. Then you had the NIP game, the, you know, infamous one now, if you like. And it was just one of those where it's like, true quality really showed itself in that game. Because when you look at the people that, like, performed well, like, it's actually crazy. Because Plopsky, I think, top fragged one map, if I remember from watching it. But Automatic was just consistently the best player on EG in a best of 3. I don't know what his future holds. It's getting kind of almost sad that he's kind of gone all in. He was brought in by Stewie to be Stewie's, like, right-hand man. And then Stewie's fucked off to Valorant. And now Automatic, who came from Valorant, is left holding the bag again. When I say monumental selfishness, like, I'm not exaggerating. It just seems crazy to me. Like, Automatic, I don't know. Like, this event, again, I'll show you his numbers. Like, why not? It really wasn't, like, based on how few maps he played and considering the team he's got, and considering where they are right now, I can fuck with it a little bit. Like, also, as you'll notice, just another guy that just casually doing more than your Lord and Savior. But yeah, look, you know, he had a 1.74. He was fucking absolutely monumental on Overpass here. This was like some real vintage shit. This was like Cloud9 at Boston shit. It was like fucking crazy. Basically, the difference he made when he came back was like really profound. And I don't know if he's going to stay there much longer, but it seems to me that, like, he might go back to Valorant. And it's a shame, because as he showed there, like, you know, that's a monster performance for a player that, like, doesn't have a particularly cohesive or experienced team around him now. So, you know, I really feel for Tim. He's always been a good lad. Come back to CS. Hasn't done anything wrong. Probably going to go back to Valorant now. And then final talking point for the Blast review. I've got to talk about Astralis. It seems to me like almost just ridiculous where they're at right now. Considering coming into this event, they were like 4th in the world. I don't feel that at all. I think, like, they had some best of one wins. The Vitality one is where people were starting to believe again, because they came back. Vitality kind of threw it, and they came back and won in overtime. And Farlig dropped 29 kills, and everyone was like, yeah, this is amazing. And I go on the subreddit again, and everyone's blaming Farlig for them underperforming right now. It's all Farlig's fault. I cannot fathom it, like, actually, how everyone is putting the blame on him. I'm not saying he's playing particularly good. Like, he certainly got found out against FaZe. He was definitely a factor in them losing that series. But, like, it's Astralis. Like, surely Config's meant to be doing more. He's meant to be a star player in the world. Like, he's meant to be their top boy. You know, he was absolutely absent against OG. He got wrecked. So it just seems like so strange that, like, Blame F is consistent. We're all allowing Glaive to, like, not be good as an IGL anymore. Like, I said this on Jackie's stream the other day. Riddle me this. Because everyone says that Device isn't the true GOAT because Device is a system AWPer and Glaive built the system that made Device great. That's what they say. I've read that opinion, like, for years. But if Glaive is so good at building systems for AWPers, why has there not been a single AWPer that's performed in Astralis since Device? Why? Like, why couldn't he do it again? It just seems so ridiculous to me. But anyway, just going into it, like, I feel that Astralis really have some problems. I don't know what the answer is, but no doubt Farlig will be offered up as a sacrificial lamb. I just don't think that tells the full story. Like, yes, everyone was on his back after the FaZe performance, and that's fair enough. As I said, I think that's fair game. But when you look at, like, other players around him, I know Zipnix has had a bit of a resurgence. He's got himself back into a positive rating. But, you know, look, here's all you need to know. Like, if you look at, like Config's playing at about the same level as Zipnix right now, which seems, like, really crazy to me. Config has got to do more. And I'm not saying it in a way that, like, he's got to go wobby. I'm not saying that. But he has to do more because, again, like, remember, Config's, on his day, Config is one of the best riflers in the world. But this is the reality. He did do relatively well against FaZe. Try and ignore this because it's all mixed up. Oh, I'll also give them credit a little bit. The players did have to go and play the heinous RMRs as well in the middle of these tournaments. But like in the OG one, this is when he just got mullered. Like, he got mullered on the first map. It was ancient. Remember Astralis? Astralis don't even have a fucking like real map pool at the moment. Like they were banning ancient in the RMR. They didn't want to play it against some of these teams and like vetoing and going on to Mirage. Best of one on Mirage. Anyone who wants that, which is fucking stupid. Just another aspect that shows me that right now the team is like not in a good place, because that's like an elementary mistake. Like, you play any other map than Mirage in a best of one online, like 100%, but no, they didn't want to. Even in the Vitality game, he wasn't great. He was pretty solid NIP. So I don't know, I just feel like Config's like kind of like getting a pass because of his past. Meanwhile, Farlig isn't. Like, Farlig's getting absolutely brutalized. He's still an upgrade from Lucky. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. You'll never tell me that Astralis didn't make the right call to drop Lucky. I've seen some people on Reddit saying, yes, Lucky you should never got rid of Lucky. It's been downhill since then. I don't think people remember how bad Lucky actually was. But anyway, back to overall standings. They're in the showdown, and they nearly didn't qualify for the major, which is the big talking point, I suppose. Nothing to do with Blast Review, but while we're here, when in Rome. The problem I have with Astralis is, you probably noticed this like all this year, and a little bit at the end of last year, they continually flirt with disaster. They get right up to the point where the worst thing is going to happen, like, we're not going to make it to the major, or we're going to bomb out in groups. And then they have one game, one series, one map, where everyone gets their shit together, and they get to the bare minimum standard they should set themselves. And then what happens after that? Well, then they go, all right, well, let's change absolutely nothing then. Let's keep limping on. All the while, by the way, Bubsky just sat in the background like, can I ever go? Like the little brother who wants to get on the PlayStation. Can I have a go, please? No, you can't have a go, Bubsky. Fuck off. You don't even have a career. I know Zipnix has come back and started playing well again, but he's not a long-term solution. He's robbed you blind, essentially, and he's playing okay-ish at the moment when your team is like sort of at rock bottom and is super dysfunctional. Config's cruising, as we talked about. You know, Glaive isn't like good on an individual level right now. They don't look tactically good right now. They're struggling. And Farlig's going to get cut because he's being blamed for everything, despite the fact that this is a dysfunctional team. Here's what you should do. For me, a fix would start with something like this. Yeah, Farlig's got to go, Wobby. I agree. You cut Farlig, fair enough. You go and you get yourself another AWPer. I heard there's another Danish AWPer out there that might be like looking to get back. And here's the thing. If they're selling him for 600,000 and they bought him, right? I'm talking about Device here. If NIP, it was reported on Jackson, I believe it was. If they're selling him for 600 grand, but they bought him for $1 million, you're still up on the deal. So you can buy it, you know what I mean? Like, what did you do with the mill? Did it go to Nicola Naum's retirement slush fund? You get Device back. It seems to be like, Return of the King. It'll get a big pop from all of the fans. Everyone will love it. He's been not playing for so long, by the way, that actually everyone's forgotten all of the bullshit that I think actually he'd be mostly forgiven by a lot of people, with the exception of NIP fans. Not a big deal. So anyway, you get him, you replace him for Farlig, it's feel good, and I'll tell you, you cut Glaive, you make Blame F the IGL, remember Blame F was an IGL, and you get yourself another hot Danish prospect, of which there are, multiple ones that you can choose from. But also, doesn't have to be Danish. They can all talk in English, they're fine. It's not a big deal. But at the end of the day, I don't know, Glaive's been allowed to have all these pieces, have Config, have Blame F, have AWPers of his choosing, and I love Lucas. But, he's at the end, and he's on the downslope. He's done so much, GOAT IGL of all time, but life moves on. And he's proven now that he cannot get this team to where it should be with the lineup he's got. I'd cut Zipnix as well, but like one step at a time, Rich. You're making some, the Glaive thing's not going to sit well with anybody at all. But this team needs a new direction. It needs a new approach tactically. It needs like Blame F to not just be the only player actually doing his job in a consistent fashion. And honestly, I don't think Glaive knows what to do with these particular pieces. You get Device to come back. You stick someone else in Glaive's position. I don't don't even know who that would be. Let me see. Let me have a look. I'm trying to think who's in fucking free agency right now that could sort of just play a solid rifling position, especially Danish players, because obviously they all got gobbled up once Copenhagen Flames went under. At the end of the day, enough's enough. How much more can you tolerate this level of underachievement for an organisation that supposedly has aspirations of challenging for every tournament it attends? You have to start laying some blame on the IGL. You've changed coaches, you've changed players. You've done everything you do before you start looking at the IGL. It's time to look at the IGL. That's my read on it. Yeah, you know what? I would play Bubsky. Drop Glaive, bring back Device, make blame FIGL, and put Bubsky in there and see what he can do. Fuck it, why not? You've already got him. You don't need to buy anyone.
He's the man to do the damage. Oh! As he knocks